Okay, ready? Let's roll. We're late. Good morning, everybody. As we go to the class, a beautiful class today. It's actually not on the Parsha of the week. It's actually on the holiday of Shavuos. As we go into the holiday of Shavuos, Amid Shem this Shabbos. It's a 3-day, almost a 3-day yontiv. We go from Shabbos straight into the yontiv of Shavuot. So it's a beautiful Parsha. It's a beautiful sichadus. I'm saying beautiful sikh of the Rebbe on this whole concept of Shavuot. And the whole purpose of Matan Torah, we have to really, as we go into the Yontiv, we should really understand what was the accomplishment, what was the concept of Matan Torah. What did the Eibishter want to accomplish with the giving of the Torah, which is the basis of learning Torah. We receive the Torah, Kabbalah Satorah. It's called the receiving the Torah. It should really be the giving of the Torah, because God gave us a Torah, but we call it Kabbalah Satorah because it's about us, humans who receive the Torah. That's the most important thing, is the receiving of the Torah. And the real question is, how truly do we receive the Torah? We learn a lot. We're learning, and we're learning right here. Are we truly receiving the Torah? Are we truly doing what we're learning? Or we're just learning for the sake of learning, and learning never ends. So there's learning Torah, there is receiving Torah. It's two different things. We can learn Torah forever and ever and ever, and never ever per se receive the Torah, to take it into our lives and actually do what we're learning, to actually fulfill exactly what we're learning. And really, we're celebrating Kabbalah Satorah. We're celebrating receiving of Torah. So, what is the meaning? The truth is, what is the meaning of the receiving of Torah? And if we're not receiving the Torah, should we learn Torah? What is the gain out of learning Torah that we're not going to do? Why do we need to do this? Why do we need to go through learning and learning and learning? It's like you go learn to be a doctor, you never be a doctor. Well, why would you do that for? It would be seemingly a waste of time. So is it a waste of time? How much we learn and how much we do? We learn a lot. That's why the Mishnah really says, Ever mat v'aseh harbeh. Talk a little, do a lot. Because self-understood, what's the whole purpose of learning if not to do? So this is a powerful question, because the truth is, we all know that we learn a lot. We learn and we learn and we learn. The question is, how much do we do? What do we do with all this learning? And again, if the celebration is Kabbalah Satorah, to receive the Torah, that's really not the celebration of the giving of the Torah. Really, it should be the celebration that God gave the Torah. But it's the celebration of, it's both. It's a celebration that God gave the Torah, but it's a celebration of the Jewish people receiving the Torah. That we receive the Torah on this day. And we all know, we said, Na'aseh v'nishma. We actually said, Na'aseh, we will do, and then we will hear. That means we put the action before the hearing. Because we understood, and we stand until today, that learning is phenomenal. And learning, we should learn. Torah says you should learn by day and night. You should and never stop learning. The question is, isn't it important to do? Isn't it important that we take the learning and we bring it into action? And if we don't bring it into action, what is our learning? What are we doing with all this learning? Where is it being stored? What do we need it for? Is it a waste of time? Is it just basically wasting our time? And this is a beautiful sikha. The Rebbe is going to explain Matan Torah, and really what are we celebrating, and how it ultimately is extremely practical to us. So the Rebbe brings down a beautiful Gemara. This is a famous Gemara in text number 1 on page 84 in the book. The Gemara brings down a beautiful medrash concerning Matan Torah as Moshe Rabbeinu went up the mountain. So we know Moshe in the story that's brought down in the Torah. Moshe Rabbeinu went up the mountain. He went up for 40 days to receive the Torah. He went up for 40 days and he brought down the first tablets on the 17th day of Tammuz. So he went up in the 6th of Sivan. He was up there for 40 days and he brought down the tablets on the 17th day of Tammuz, which was the day that he broke the tablets, right? But it's not, this sikha is not about that. The sikha is when this teaching of the Rebbe is the story the Medrash says when Moshe Rabbeinu went up to heaven to bring the Torah down to the Jewish nation. The Gemara says as follows, Gemara in Masechta Shabbos, which is the whole story of Matan Torah is in Masechta Shabbos. The Gemara says, Rabbi Shmuel Malevi said, when Moshe Rabbeinu ascended on high, the ministering angel declared before God, Master Yunus, what is a human being doing it? What's Moshe Rabbeinu? What is this human being doing here? I can say if Moshe Rabbeinu's soul went to heaven, what is this human being doing here? What is he doing in heaven? So God said to them, what are you doing in heaven? Moshe Rabbeinu came to receive the Torah. The angels replied to him, he said to him, a treasure is hidden for 974 generations, prior to creation of the world. The Torah that's in heaven, Torah that's been here for whatever that means, 970 years before creation, because before creation, there was no time and space. Whatever, that's a separate subject. So you seek to give it to flesh and blood. You want to give it to a human being? Are you serious? What are the humans that you should remember them? The son of a human that you should have mindful of them. They even said a pasuk in Tehillim. Lord, right? Lord, our master, how mighty is your name in all of earth, for the sake of which you should bestow your majesty upon the heavens. Why would you do this? Things are going fine. Why would you do this? God turns to Moshe and he says, okay, an answer. Moshe Rabbeinu said in their presence, Master of the universe, Torah that you have given to me, what is it written in it? I am the Lord your God who took you out of Egypt. Moshe Rabbeinu turned to the angel and said, did you go down to Egypt? Were you enslaved to Pharaoh? Why should it have nothing to do with the whole Torah? Again, Moshe, what's written in it? You shall not murder. You shall not commit adultery. You shall not steal. Is there jealousy among you? Do you have an evil inclination? What is it? Well, the whole 10 Commandments. You should not kill. You should not adultery. You should not say God's name in vain. You should not covet. You not have jealousy. So what does that have to do with you? Immediately, the angels agreed with God's plan to give it to you. We're going to answer that. It's true. It says, God, your master, our glorious is your name. And notably, the verse doesn't continue, place your glory upon the heavens. So let me finish. So the angels agreed that the Torah talks about the capability and the possibility of sin. The insistence that the angels had that the Torah shouldn't go, because the Torah is unbelievable spiritual book. It's unbelievable spiritual chachma of the wisdom of God. Why would you give the wisdom of God to men that are going to abuse the Torah? And Moshe Rabbeinu's answer was, you're right. The Torah has unbelievable wisdom. The Torah talks about don't kill and don't steal. And therefore, humans have the capability of killing and stealing and jealousy and hatred, etc., fathers and mothers and brothers and sisters, etc., etc. They got all the problems in life, and therefore the Torah talks about human problems. The Rebbe asks the simple question. All of the supernal worlds, even the loftiest one, are insignificantly related to the Torah. Accordingly, makes little sense that the Torah was created just as an antidote to the evil inclination. What is Moshe Rabbeinu's answer? Moshe Rabbeinu's answer, the Torah belongs to the Jews. Why? Because they have an evil inclination. Because they have the capability of doing evil. That's why the whole Torah was given. What kind of answer is that? That's what the Torah was given so that a human being should not kill and steal? The Eibishter created the whole world for the Torah. The whole world was created for the Torah. Everything in the universe is created for the Torah. Torah has within it creation of the world. And Moshe Rabbeinu answers a question which is accepted in heaven, that the whole reason the Torah should be given to man is because man has desires, has even evil desires of murder and stealing and rape and adultery, etc., etc. Therefore, the 970 years before creation should be given to man. Almost like saying that if man was perfect, we wouldn't we wouldn't need a Torah. God forbid. If man was perfect and we wouldn't kill and steal and murder, there would not be any need for the Torah. Right? That's what Moshe Rabbeinu's answer. He should have said, what do you mean? The Torah has wisdom and we have wisdom, whatever. Could have come up with another, I could have given him a couple of pointers. But Moshe Rabbeinu in the Medrash answers a simple answer that the Torah tells don't kill, no angel has killed. The Torah tells don't steal, no angels steal, and therefore there's no need for a Torah in the world. The world is in need of a Torah because humans have the capacity, and ultimately some of them do steal and kill, etc., etc.
How can someone with who's like programmed?
It's not simple that they don't have any will. They do have some free will. They do have free will. They do have free will. They do have a certain level of free will. They do. Angels do have a certain level of free will because they're creation. Anything that's a creation that God created has a certain level of free will. The question is what the level. They don't have free will like we have free will. They don't have free will to do negative. The angels do have free will. We find it in the Torah itself that they have free will. So God punishes the angels that send to light, etc., because they say we're gonna. So they have a certain level of free will. Know for sure that the Gemara says when God said, "Let us make man," so according to some in the Gemara, he spoke to the angels. So that means he asked the angels a question, and we know the famous Medrash. He asked the angels the four different bodies of angels: kindness, severity, and justice. And certain ones said yes, and certain said no, etc. So they have the Eibishter gives them their little bit of free will that they have, and to express themselves. That's why they praise the greatness of the angel, that they praise God. If they don't have free will, so what's the greatness of the angel? Then they praise God. That's what they are. Yeah. So the angels praise God because they want to praise God. They have that expression.
But they don't have evil.
No. Okay. So the Rebbe asked a simple question. So the sounding from the Gemara is that the whole reason why God gave the Jewish people the Torah is because we have the motivated to do evil. Sounds a little bit fishy, so to say, or a little bit interesting that the Torah should be given to the Jewish nation because that's the excuse to give the Torah to the Jewish nation. So let's put this aside a second. We're going to come back to this concept. And let us look at the Kabbalah Torah. What's the purpose of God giving us the Torah to learn? It's important for us to learn Torah. Why? Because it's a gift by God. God gave us a wisdom. There's a in Pirkei Avos, and that's a statement that says that God, there's a baskel, a voice that comes out, reverberates from heaven, says, Why are you embarrassing? Every day it says, why are you embarrassing the Torah which I gave you? I gave you the Torah and I gave you a great gift. Why are you not learning it? Why are you not studying it? Why are you searching for other knowledge in life when I've given you the ultimate knowledge, the wisdom of HaKadosh Baruch Hu? I give you the ultimate knowledge. Why are you abusing it? So, power of learning Torah, and in what level must I learn Torah? So we know there's basically two concepts in learning Torah. If you've ever learned before, it says Torah l'shma, shlei l'shma. There's learning Torah for the sake of l'shma, for the sake of God. And then there's ulterior motive, why a person learns. Every person learns for a certain reason. In general, you learn knowledge. You're trying to accomplish something. Why are you learning Torah? The question is, you have to ask yourself, why am I learning Torah? Am I learning Torah because this is the knowledge of God, which was given to me as a human to be able to learn the knowledge of God, or am I trying to learn it for ulterior motives, for different reasons? What is the reason why I'm learning Torah? The Mishnah says, the Gemara in Talmud, the Gemara says, Rav said, the Amar Rabbi Yehuda Amar Rav, text number 3. Rabbi Yehuda said in the name of Rav, a person should always engage in the Torah and mitzvahs, even for ulterior motives. So he says to wait for people to start doing things for the right motives, then nobody's going to do anything, okay? So humans are to learn Torah for ulterior motives, because doing something with ulterior motives leads to doing it for intended purposes. So even though you're learning for ulterior motives, you're learning to acquire knowledge, just to acquire your own knowledge, to acquire, understand, that's ulterior motives. That's nothing to do with that. I'm learning it for myself, my own knowledge. Well, what do you mean learning? Go learn the other philosophies for knowledge. We're learning Torah because it's God's knowledge. That's Lishma. Lishma means God's knowledge. It's not your knowledge. My thought is not your thought. So therefore, don't even try to think that you'll be able to ultimately understand everything that is written in the Torah. And don't think that you will acquire the ultimate knowledge, but still you're obligated to learn and to try to acquire the knowledge of God. But Rav says the opposite. Rav says a person should learn Torah even for ulterior motives. And then there'll be Menachem Meiri, the interpretation on this Gemara, the Meiri, who wrote interpretation on Gemara in general, right? For even someone who engage in Torah mitzvahs for an ulterior motive is rewarded. Question that's asked, why? Why would you be rewarded? Why would the Gemara, Rab, say that a person should learn for ulterior motives? Isn't the Torah of God? It's not like a concept of philosophy. It's not like any other knowledge, human knowledge. You want to learn it. You don't want to learn it, you don't have to learn. Torah is the knowledge of God. So should you learn Torah for ulterior motives?
You don't get a diploma.
So, well, you never learn, right? You never get a diploma from Torah knowledge. So the Rambam, in Maimonides,
No, that's when you're in the ground.
in your text number 5, explains it as follows. Tries to explain this concept. He says, understand, when a young child is brought into a teacher to learn Torah. Now we're all a young child. This concept of young child doesn't mean only a young child. It means we're all young children when we come to learn Torah, especially in the beginning.
You're just saying that because
Everybody's a young child, because especially if you just started learning Torah, sure you're a young child. Trust me, we're all young children in the learning Torah. We're not the sages that are considered adults. So we understand when young children are brought into teacher to learn Torah, due to their age and limited perception, they don't comprehend how good it is and what it can gain from its perfection. From their more developed from there, more the developed vantage point, the teacher should encourage the child to learn age-appropriate prizes, right? The teacher can't say something like this, read and I'll give you a nut and a fig. That was those days, the prizes. I'll give you a little honey. I don't think it'll work today. Today it's a Nintendo game. The prizes have become bigger. It is the prize that motivates the child. The child, he's thinking about the prize and not the actual text itself. If you tell him, oh, I want you the prizes, knowing the text, he'll say, have a good day. For the child doesn't realize the Torah's true value. When the child matures and develops, they will realize that they're too mature for such things. And they'll become unappealing to them, nuts and things. The teacher should say something like this, learn this section or this chapter, and I'll give you a coin, money. Nothing has changed. 2 coins. The child will read and put the effort in order to get the money, since money is more prestigious in their eyes than study. The whole point of learning for them is that they'll get the promised money. So we give you food, whatever. We get different ways of doing things. If the general public perform mitzvahs out of fear of punishment or receive a reward, this is not entirely bad. While imperfect, perhaps this is good enough for them until they'll become tools, until they'll have the tools, practice, and have to put enough effort in Torah observance that will lead them to understand that the truth about serving God out of love. And that's the journey of a human being. He might never, ever mature, maybe. He'll always need to have the ulterior motive for some reason. And maybe he'll never come to the love of HaKadosh Baruch Hu that he's learning and he's studying and he's doing mitzvahs because he loves the Eibishter. He loves God. A person should always engage in Torah and mitzvahs, even if it is not for his own sake, because doing something for an ulterior motive leads to doing it for its own sake. Now, the question of how it leads doesn't say, it doesn't really say how it leads. How the Rambam doesn't give you how it leads. It's just explaining you the Gemara. The Gemara says better do something for ulterior motives because from the ulterior motives comes to the good motives. But really, then the Rambam gives you an analogy of a child that from nuts he has to go to money, and from money he has to go to something else, whatever. So you might have to go from level to level, reward to reward. The Eibush is going to have to keep on figuring out what kind of reward to give you to keep the mitzvahs. So as you get older, you want more rewards. And let's say, what happens if Chas v'Shalom, you don't get any rewards? What happens if you don't get, if things start to go Chas v'Shalom sour? So what are you going to do? You're going to drop Torah mitzvahs. You're not getting any rewards. You see me leave doing Torah mitzvahs, and everything is going negative. So maybe I don't have to follow Torah mitzvahs, right? Because I'm basically doing it because I see some gain out of it. So we really, okay, that's why the Eibush, that's why we pray that the Eibush should give everybody good and success, and they should do the becoming part of Torah mitzvahs. Last week's Pasha, God should give everybody an abundance because it's a challenge, especially to, the famous question, why do bad things happen to good people? I became a holy person and look what's going on.
Holocaust.
Everything is going on. Nothing going on. Holocaust. I lost my business. I don't have parnasa. That's a bigger problem. Right. I'm having all these struggles. Why? I became more religious. And God should give me all my necessities. And he should fulfill all my desires. You have to turn to the person and say, what do you mean? What are you doing Torah mitzvahs for? You're doing Torah mitzvahs for the sake of God, or you're doing Torah mitzvahs for your gain, your happiness in life, for your money, for shalom bayis. That's what you're doing it for. What are you doing?
So it's the same thing, it's reward and punishment.
Right? So therefore the Rambam writes, that's the way it is. It's not the end of the world. That's human nature. Human nature, we live in a world of cause and effect. And we like to do things, and it should be a positive karma, right? We like when we do things, good things should happen to us. Who wants to do good things and bad things should happen to them? We don't feel good about that, right? We feel it's not, and we feel it's unright.
Unfair.
It's unfair, right? You did the good thing so that good things should happen to you. You did the good things because it's good to do. But in human nature, we're going to say, wait a second, it's not fair. It's just not fair. Where does it say it has to be fair?
Well, it's not-
Where does it say it's tit for tat?
It's not-
What is that? A child? Clean your room and I'll give you ice cream. Clean your room and I'll give you your phone back. Clean your room because you got to clean your room. End of story. Not because of you what you're going to get, what you're going to receive, because that's what you need. But reward and punishment is an important part of our life. Why? Because we're not totally mature. And it's not bad. We're children. It's not a negative thing to be children. It's not the you're not going to punish a child for wanting that, because you understand a child needs that. So too you understand the world. I'm not saying that we're all children of God. We all humans are humans, whether they're adults or they don't always have the love, lishma. We just don't have the lishma. We don't have for the sake of heaven. We all have strings attached. There's always something attached to it.
Ego.
It's all good. It's all good. It's a reward. I need the carrot. I need the carrot. I need that carrot. I need that reward. If you're not going to give me that reward, I might not daven. Or I might not daven with the great enthusiasm because I need that Olam Haba. I need that reward. I need that with nothing wrong. Because I'm saying it's nothing wrong. It's not a wrong thing. But what does the Mishnah say in Pirkei Avos? A person should serve God not for the sake of reward. He should serve God because he's created to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's the ultimate. Rambam writes himself. Maybe it's not the reality, but right? It's not reality. And the Torah is a book of reality. And the Torah knew the reality of a human being. And therefore the Torah tells a human being, learn Shaloi Lishma. Learn, do Torah mitzvahs, have your ulterior motives. But then the Mishnah puts a caveat. See, that's the problem. The Gemara puts a statement. And the Gemara says, because from you're not doing it for the right way, you'll do it for the right way. That throws in something. That's like a wrench in the whole statement. It should have said, do the mitzvahs not for the right reason. Why does he have to add? Because from the not right reason will come the right reason. Meaning of that statement. From the wrong reason will come the right reason. What happens if it doesn't come the right reason? Doing it year after year after year, I haven't got to the right. When is it? How much patience should I have to do things for the ulterior motives? And I'm learning and I'm davening and it's all for the hope of something and for the gain of something. And I'm really not finding the love. I'm really not I'm doing it because I'm in love with God. I'm just getting the ulterior motive. I'm doing it. How much longer do I need to go on this way, on this journey with ulterior motives to ultimately come to the right reason? How many years do I need to give it? I'm a human being. You gotta give me an end date over here. So 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. The end date is
The end date is when you see it.
okay. So there's no end date basically because I may never see it, and I may have to wait till Gan Eden when my neshama leaves my body. So basically, I'm never going to see it. Thank you very, very much. I quit. I quit. And I'll tell you why I quit. I'll tell you why. If that's the thing, I quit.
Why?
Because you'll see the next statement. because basically that's not the way to do it.
But
You have to have lishma. If you don't have lishma, basically you're wasting your time. So that's where we have a contradiction in statements.
I disagree with the whole premise.
Wait, well, let's see the next statement.
Karen wants to talk.
Well, one second. I want to finish it. I want to finish my thought.
Yeah, okay.
So let's just see the next two statements, and you'll see why you cannot say that. It's stated, the beginning of wisdom is the fear of God. A good understanding have to all to fulfill the mitzvahs. It's not stated simply all who fulfill, but rather all who fulfill them. Those who perform these actions as they ought to be performed, meaning those who do such deeds for their own sake. And the Gemara continues it very harshly, for the sake of the deed himself, and not for those who do them, not for their own sake. One who does not them for their own sake, it would be preferable for him not to be created. Whoa, what a statement in the Gemara. So don't think that this is all for Gan Eden. You're wasting your time. You need to do things for the sake of heaven. And if you don't do it for the sake of heaven, you're wasting, this Gemara sounds like you're wasting your time. You're wasting your time. You're wasting your time. That's what it sounds. You should not have been created. You wasted your whole life. If you cannot do something for the sake of heaven, you're wasting your time.
Oh, the love.
For the love of God, you're wasting your time. That's what the Gemara says.
I disagree with the whole premise.
I didn't finish the premise because you kind of disagree there. Let's take the text number 7. Go control it, right? So that's pretty harsh. That's pretty harsh. Yeah, we control. I agree with you. Now, but look, Tanya, the way Rabbana Omer. Rabbana said, whoever engages in Torah studies, not a Gemara, or touristically, the Torah becomes an elixir of life for him. As the verse says, it's a tree of life for those who hold on to it. It should be a cure to his body. And whoever finds me finds life. That's beautiful. Whoever engages in Torah study for ulterior motives, he becomes an elixir of death. It's heavy.
That's pretty heavy.
That's pretty heavy. So don't get too happy. Okay? Don't get too excited, right? Don't get so excited, right? Don't say, oh, you know what? I'll just learn for the sake of ulterior motives and I'll, no, it's not so simple. You need to learn the Shema. You need to come to that concept. You need to mature yourself. That's what the Gemara is telling us. You need to become mature. You cannot be immature your whole life. You need to become mature. We all need to become mature. We need to ultimately come to the level of love of God before we die. For the purpose of our existence, we need to become mature. We need to do things for the love of HaKadosh Baruch Hu and not do it for ulterior motives. Ultimately come to that level. So that's how do you do with this contradiction in the Gemara? Because this is not a joke, okay? Because on one hand, the Gemara Rav is one of the greatest rabbis of all time, said that you should do things for non-ulterior motives. I mean, you should do things for ulterior motives. And from the ulterior motive comes the real. And comes these two Tanoim and say, my friend, when you do things for ulterior motives, you're wasting your time. Not only are you wasting time, it's a samamaves. You're bringing death to your life, God forbid.
I want to say that I disagree with the whole premise because you're saying things that contradict what I've learned in Judaism, which is who are we to say what a reward is? When we see a challenge in front of us, I was told that's good too. We need that challenge and it elevates us and takes us to that place. So who are we to decide what the reward is?
The pasuk says so. The pasuk says so. I don't have to decide anything. The verse says so. The verse says, if you follow the Torah, I'll give you rains in your time. I'll give you dew. I'll give you fruits. Doesn't say I'll give you produce. I'll give you everything you need, begashmis. It does not say I will only give you. It doesn't say anything about Gan Eden, actually. It doesn't say that you. Where does it say in the Torah? Where does it say in the Torah that your word is Gan Eden? Doesn't say that. That where does it say in the Torah that the reward of mitzvahs is Gan Eden? It doesn't say anywhere in the Torah that. Not in the Torah. In the Torah, it says, I'm going to give you food, home, clothing, etc. That's what it says in the Torah. You want to go to the pasuk. If you want to go, you go to Jacob. Jacob, what does Jacob says to God? If you give me clothes, home, room and board, I'll serve you. Simple. I need the basic necessities. God promises me my basic necessities. It's a pasuk in the Torah. I don't have to go to the concept of sure, in the Chazal, in the sages, we have the spiritual one. And in Chassidus, what he said, everything is a reward, but that's not the simple explanation in the Torah. Simple explanation of the Torah reward is God going to give you your basic.
Told by and it's all about the process, like you're saying you never grad. It's all about the process when you.
So my question is again to them, when is the process? I'm right now have no money to pay for my mortgage. So when does the process happen? How much longer I'm going to sit and learn and dive and everything? And it's all about the meanwhile, I can't pay my mortgage. How many mortgage payments I have to default to get this process done? Okay, how many mortgage payments? Give me a time limit. A year mortgage payment, 2 years of mortgage payments. How much does it go? How much does it go? It's not an ending thing. It's all great philosophically. It's all great philosophically. You want to you talk philosophically. You're 100% right. Torah is not only a philosophical book. Torah is a book of life. Torah says, the Torah says, you should reach up to the level where you serve God has nothing to do with your physical world. It has to do with your spiritual world. That's Lishma. I serve God because it's the service of God. It's irrelevant what's happening in the world. But that's not reality. That's not my reality. Maybe it's your reality, but it's not my reality. My reality is I live in a world that I don't do things for this. I have ulterior motives. And those ulterior motives do affect me. And when I am not successful in the world, I have a struggle in my Yiddishkeit too. Right? When I'm not making a panos, it's hard for me to get up in the morning or to go out and get up and daven and learn, etc. Because I'm having a struggle with my worldly possession. And therefore, praying every day that David should give us all our needs. And that we should be able to serve God in tranquility and in success and in wealth and in happiness and health.
Peace.
And in peace. So there's always ulterior motives. And that's why Raf said, a person should serve God. La'olam, a person should always serve even for ulterior motives. That's it. Because even for ulterior motives, he should serve God for ulterior motives. The problem is what he says, because from the ulterior motives, you'll come to the positive, to the real reason. How does he connect that? How does he connect that concept? So in essence, Rav also agrees you got to come to the real reason. But Rav really agrees with these two rabbis. They got to come to the right reason. The first statement that we learned was lived after Rabbi Rav and they go Rav and Shmuel. I don't know. Rav. That was the name he's in the Gemara, Rav. They used to call him Rav. They didn't give him. They didn't call. That was the days when they changed. They didn't call the rabbi by his regular name. They call him Rav. That's what came the new tradition, not to call the rabbi by his name, Rav.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Rebbe, right. So the Gemara is bothered by this contradiction. The Gemara is bothered. I mean, not thinking about the Tosfos. Over here, text number 8. There's a Tosfos. Tosfos is one of the commentators on the side of the Gemara. If you look at the Gemara, there's Rashi and there's Tosfos. Rashi was Yitzchaki. He was the grandfather of Tosfos. Tosfos are the Rabbeinu Tam, the Rival, etc. They were the grandchildren of Rashi, and Rashi had no sons; he only had daughters. But he had great grandsons who were great sages. One of the great Rabbeinu Tam, like is known. So they argued with Rashi. They argued with their grandfather almost on everything in the whole. So Rashi wrote a pirush on the whole Torah, right? He wrote a pirush on the whole Chumash. Rashi wrote interpretation. The whole Chumash. Rashi wrote interpretation on the whole Gemara, almost the whole Gemara. So there's Rashi in every Gemara, right? In every Talmud, I'm sure you know. In every page of Talmud, right? If you take a page of Talmud, in every page of Talmud, you have Rashi. On every page of Talmud, you have Rashi. Rashi is to the right. To the right, you have Rashi, the interpretation of Rashi, and to the left, over here, you have Tosfos. Tosfos. It's called Tosfos. Tosfos means added. So there was a group of his grandsons of Rashi, who wrote usually arguing with Rashi most of the time.
Children do that.
Grandchildren, not children. So his grandchildren argued with Rashi, and they lived in it. They lived after Rashi lived. They lived in a different generation. So this is Rashi and Tosfos. So on the Gemara, and not always, it's always on Rashi. They explain the Gemara in different ways. Tosfos. So in that Gemara, you have a Tosfos. The text it says the word Tosfos. In Tosfos, in Talmud of Tainus, says to answer the two types of non-autistic studies. Gemara. So to answer this question, Tosfos brings up this question in the Talmud, and the Tosfos answers that there's two kinds of lishma, lo lishma.
What's lishma?
Lo lishma. There are two kinds for ulterior motives. There's two ulterior motives.
When you say lishma, you mean
For the sake of heaven.
But
Lishma means for the sake of heaven. Lishma means for the name. So for the name of God. So lishma, that's the name. That's the word. Lishma means for the name of God. Shalei lishma means for the ulterior motives. Not for the name, but for your own sake. The statement a person should always engage in Torah mitzvahs even with ulterior motives is referring to a person who studies for the sake of earning a title of a teacher or gaining respect. So he wants knowledge. So he'll become the teacher of the class. He wants knowledge because he wants that people will respect him and that he's a respectable scholar. Okay, what's so terrible about that? What's so terrible about a person who wants to have knowledge? He wants to be a respectable person.
That's ego.
No, it's not ego. It's the concept that I want to become a teacher. I can't become a teacher if I don't have knowledge.
The Rebbe says if you know all, teach
Did you know?
So
Right?
you
Should do that.
That's a good thing.
Right. So that's a good thing. It's not the best thing. You should do it for the sake of heaven, but it's a good thing. We need teachers in the world. We need to have rabbis in the world. If everybody's gonna say, I don't want to be a rabbi, I don't want to be a teacher, we want to have teachers. So we need to have that person. People should learn knowledge to teach others. Whoever engages in Torah study for ulterior, because the elixir of death for them is referred to someone who learns an intention to ridicule others. Person who wants to have knowledge, so they say, I'm smarter than you. Right? You're the dummy, and I'm the smart one. That's real ulterior motives. So that's how Tosfos wants to try to massage, so to say, the meaning of ulterior motives. There's two kinds of ulterior motives. There's the ulterior motive for one's own greatness, okay, even if it's his ego, knowledge. And there's ulterior motives of his ego to hurt others, to put others. I'm the sage, you're the idiot, so now you just never forget that, okay? I'm the rabbi, you're the simpleton, you need to follow me. That is ulterior. That is negative ego. So that's how he wants success. Rashi also says this here. Rashi and Tosfos don't argue with this. And there's actually text number 9 says also in a different Gemara. Rashi says one who does their mitzvahs, including Torah study, not for their own sake. It would have been preferable for him to be non-created. This refers to someone who studies with no intention to fulfill what he learns, but rather to ridicule others. So he says the same thing. Masters that encourage studying for ulterior motives, as it leads to study for the right reason, is referring to someone who learns Torah in the pursuit of honor. So, even though it's a pursuit of honor, but he's learning to, ultimately he's learning and he's doing, but he's looking for honor. So, not the best, but that's human nature. We all have ego. So the Gemara says, the Rav says, do it even for the sake of honor. But should you do it to ridicule others? That is wrong. Then better you shouldn't have been born. Better you shouldn't have been created. It's the sum of death. Okay, interesting. Rebbe is not happy with it. Babich Rebbe is not happy with that statement. Because ultimately, what's the difference? Ultimately, what is the difference? Ultimately, you're doing something for an ulterior motive. It's whether you hurt somebody or not hurting somebody, to the core of the situation, they're both egotistical concepts. They're both for selfish reasons. L'shma, for the sake of learning, is l'shma. But that's l'shma. But if you're learning for the sake of again, so what is the meaning of an ulterior motive? So if it's your sake of your learning, so that's ulterior motive. What do you want to learn? What do you want to get this? What do you want to get this knowledge?
To be a better person.
It is a little selfish. It's basically the Eibishter Pasha gave you. The Eibishter gave a Torah that you should become a better person. This is what the Torah came out. So that's the original question. This is the whole Torah came out that you should become a better. The Eibishter that created the Torah 2,000 years before creation was worried about your psychological problems, and therefore he had to create a Torah. He created therapists for that. What do you mean? He created therapists. What, he gave you a free product? Go pray, pay for it. Go pay for therapy. I created a Torah for your therapy. That's what I created. The Torah gave the knowledge of the world for you because you have issues.
But being a
Go
better
ahead. Take care of your issues.
includes certain.
So, but okay, for your reason you just gave, there is a selfish motive to that. There is a selfish motive.
You're doing it for yourself.
For yourself.
Become a better
So you do
person.
yourself. Even you should become a better
But
person.
once you learn the Torah, it teaches.
That's the
it
unselfish
Even be kind to others. What the Eibishter gave a Torah to be kind to others.
Yeah.
They know. That's the ultimate purpose of the Torah. The Eibishter gave a Torah, which is a godly concept to be kind to others.
Yeah, it's on one.
No, you have to, again, we have to understand what that means. We have to comprehend. The Torah is the wisdom of HaKadosh Baruch Hu before any others were around. The Torah is the wisdom of God. As we say, it was something that was here before even the creation of the world. And that's why the angels, now you understand why the angels question why he's going to Torah down to earth. Give them a book of how to treat others. You know, create a book of how to treat others and how to be nice, and send it down a book of how to treat others. You have to give them a Torah, which is the wisdom of Kadosh Baruch Hu. Give them a book of how to be a mensch.
No.
And that's it. Why would you send them the Torah?
Because we're supposed to be at work here, and we have to know.
Yeah, but the angel said, ultimately, they're going to need first psychiatric help. Before they come to that, they all need to go to a psychiatrist to be able to become a mensch before they can learn the Torah. So why would you give them a Torah? Let the first send a psychiatrist and then give them the Torah. But you're giving people that are a bunch of Meshugayim, you're giving them the Torah. We know that they're going to learn the Torah they need our all help. They're all going to learn Torah for ulterior motives. And why abuse the Torah? Why take something that is so holy, so godly, and give it to humans that we know are ungodly? That's a question. We know that Moshe said that. We question what was Moshe's meaning? I know that Moshe said it. You're right. Moshe Rabbeinu said exactly what I just said. But why aren't the angels correct? That's the question. Why aren't the angels correct? Why is Moshe correct ultimately? And the Eibishter gives a Torah to Moshe Rabbeinu. Why is that Moshe Rabbeinu correct and the angels are incorrect? The angels are correct, seemingly. Taking such a high concept and giving it for the sake of mental health. Mental health is very important, but you don't have to take the Torah and use it for that concept. We can give a second book, create a second book to help people out in their human nature. Oh, what is the answer? That's the question is always better sometimes than the answer, but it's going to be a beautiful answer because the truth is, let's see. The Rebbe says, the Alter Rebbe says actually, the Tosfos distinctions insufficient. The Alter Rebbe writes out to this. What do we gain from differentiating between people's intentions? What do we gain out of it? Oh, this guy is doing it for his honor. That guy's doing it. What are we gaining out of this? It is all considered done for ulterior motive. What's the difference? The way the guy who did it because of he wants to do it to put some guy down, the guy who did it for his own. What's the difference? It's ulterior motives. So why would we? You're nitpicking over here. You have to go to a different approach. Let's give it a different approach.
Good idea.
Good idea. Let's go to a different approach. Let's go to text number 11. Here, the Gemara says as follows. Rava was the one to say. This was Rava. This is Rava, not Rav. Rava was one to say. The objective of the Torah wisdom is that it leads to repentance and good deeds. A person should not study Torah and Mishnah and then spurn his father, mother, and teacher, and those who are greater than them in wisdom or in number of students than they have. Okay? So hopefully by learning, you're going to learn and learn and learn and learn. And by your learning, it's going to affect you sooner or later, right? You shouldn't be despondent for learning and it's not happening. Continue learning. Learn and learn and learn, because ultimately by learning, so really the point is, what means Shalei Lishma? When a person that learns not for the sake that it's going to change, that he's learning to become better, that's Torah Shlo Shma. Guy was learning. Oh, what up? I'll go and learn. What the heck? I'll learn, and who cares? It's nice. I need to fill up my time.
Yeah.
Right? Nice Torah is nice lectures. It's knowledge. Who's not interested in knowledge? Has nothing to do with my action. I'm not interested in changing my life. I like knowledge. He learns because he wants to change his life, right? He wants to have knowledge that's ultimately going to change life. So the Gemara says, even though at the beginning you're learning and you don't see a change, continue learning because you'll see, ultimately as you learn and learn and learn, you're going to come to Lishma. Okay, that's beautiful. That's a nice way of doing it. That's a nice way of separating it. So there's two ways, and we can see this openly. People that stop learn and learn and learn, and it never changes their way, because they're not interested in changing their way. They like knowledge. Connection between knowledge and life. They see it, knowledge. Knowledge is a beautiful thing in itself. They never open the book, right? So that the Gemara says, then you shouldn't have been born. You're wasting your time. You're wasting your time. You're wasting your time. If you're going to learn and learn and learn, because you're not even just like knowledge, not for the sake of incorporate, better you shouldn't have learned anything. Better you shouldn't have been born. You're Samamovis. It's just going to be, you're going to become egotistical. You'll become like this great, the Gemara expression, a person could be a disgusting person, and he has the Torah as his backing. Talmid Chacham, I can be disgusting. Learning, because he wants to learn. He not only likes knowledge, he likes knowledge for the sake of becoming a better person. But he doesn't see it. Right now, he's doing it for ulterior motives. Let him continue to learn. Ultimately, since he has that drive that he wants to change his life, it will change his life. That's a problem, but that's a small problem. That's a small problem. Because if he doesn't change his life, he learns something and he doesn't change his life, then maybe it's better he shouldn't have learned it. Because it's better to do something by mistake than to do something intentionally. Right? So that might be a problem. So that's you have Tosfos in Tosfos again in Masechta Sotah says the non-holistic study that tractate tainis and tractate brachas mentioned is referred to someone who engages in Torah study with no plans to implement what they study, whether out of fear or love, rather to sin. How so? Because it was one inadvertent sin, now becomes an intentional sin. That's why it's called a Samamavis. That's why it's called, when you learn according to this, if you learn for ulterior motives, and he's just for the sake of learning, and now you learn something that the Torah says you're not allowed to do, and you say, I don't care, then why should you have learned it? You've now taken an inadvertent sin, and you have now transformed it to an intentional sin. Situation, you ruined it. Made the learning worse. Even though this person now knows what they are transgressing, they still don't curb any of their desires. It's in line with the statement of brachas. The objective of Torah wisdom is that leads to repentance and good deeds. Go back a little bit to square one. Is the statement of Rav that a person should learn for ulterior motives.
I do.
No, doesn't say that. Doesn't say that. Rav says that there's a positive concept in learning for ulterior motives. What would be the positive concept in learning ulterior motives? We tried any kind of avenue right now to explain this concept. We haven't yet explained the concept. So here the Rebbe explains the concept. Yeah. Learned a bunch of Gemaras. That is Torah.
I'm not here for mathematics. I'm not here for mathematics.
And then there's.
We're learning Torah Shabbat Peh. We're learning Torah Shabbat Ksav and Torah Shabbat Peh. We're learning Torah. The Rebbe is being down the statement out to them. Look at this. Some say that nevertheless, a person should always engage in Torah and mitzvahs even with ulterior motives, because doing something with ulterior motives leads to do it with intended purposes. Eventually, the light of Torah will bring them back to the righteous path. The power of Torah. The Rebbe says, "Mitoch shalei lishma." You have to look at the wording of the Gemara. The Gemara says, Rav says, learn Torah shalei lishma. Why? Because in the shalei lishma is the lishma. In the learning for the ulterior motives is the real reason. What is the real reason? The Torah. The Torah. The power of the Torah itself. Forget about why you're learning, for what reason. The Torah. All forgetting about the power of Torah. The power of Torah itself has within it the power to change a person. He might think he's learning for whatever, right? The person might think he's learning for, he wants to become a this, he wants to become a that, he wants to be a rabbi. He's learning Torah. And the power of Torah itself transforms a person. Verse says, the Alter Rebbe says, they forsook me and did not keep my Torah. Our sages says, if only they would have forsaken me, but keep my Torah. How do you put them two together? How do you forsake God and keep the Torah? But the Abish is saying, even if they would have forsaken me, but they would not stop learning Torah, they would have come all back. They would have all come back. But the problem was that they stopped learning Torah. The Torah itself has a power within itself. The words of the Torah itself has unbelievable power to every single one of us, to every single Jew. The Torah, not the knowledge of the Torah, not the Torah. The words of the Torah. Opening up a Chumash and reading the words of the Torah has a power. Rab says, learn the Torah anyway. I don't care all your motives. I don't care. In essence, according to the Alter Rebbe, I don't care if your motives are to do whatever you want to do with it. Even your motives are to be a big knacker. I don't care. Learn Torah. Because it's going to affect you. It's going to change you. Right? Because the light of the Torah would have brought them back to the righteous path. Learning Torah. That's why you should learn Torah whenever you have a chance to learn Torah. Even though you're not going to become a tzaddik, you might not exactly follow it, don't make a difference. Learn Torah, my friends. That's the holiday of Shavuos. The holiday of Shavuos, the Eibush that gave us a power that is parallel to anything that you can imagine. And if Jews would only receive the Torah and learn Torah, they would ultimately all change. If they would not forsake the learning of Torah.
I thought it was all about the cheese.
Let's go further. Ready? Let's go further. I don't want you to lose this. So the Rebbe says the truth is, this is the Rebbe. No, the Alter Rebbe continues. The truth is in text number 14. The truth is that the Talmud is unanimous that all non-altruistic study is a lesser death and is preferable for him that he not been created than to do, regardless. The Talmud says, yeah, fine. You should have been alive. You should have been dead. Keep on learning. That's what the Talmud says. Who cares? You should have been here right now. So right now, you should have been alive. It's a lecture of death. It's all terrible. You keep on learning. So Rav is not arguing with the other side. He says, you're fine. It's terrible. It's a terrible. You keep on learning.
What did you say that here?
I say a lot of things that I don't know, so don't worry. So regardless, the Talmud still declares that one should always engage in Torah because the habitual study will lead to a Toristic study. Since the Torah, not because you're going to become a great person, but because the Torah is going to affect you.
It's a great thing.
That's it. The Torah, the light of the Torah is so powerful. So how terrible you are, it's going to change you.
Baruch Hashem.
You like the Rebbe's answer.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's about, even though it's still called the lecture of death, even though you right now you're learning Torah for ulterior motives, and Rabbi Huna said you're drinking the power of death, it can transform into a lecture of, don't worry, you keep on learning. And you're going to see that the Torah is going to change you. It's going to turn the elixir of death into an elixir of life. Person would stop studying altogether because of all these ulterior motives. He say, oh, I'm a hypocrite. I'm not going to. That's when it's dead. That's when it's not going to die.
Yeah.
That's when it's going to die. To the above mental reasons, they would follow the heart every whim and commit every evil. That's when it's dead. That's when it dies. When we stop learning Torah, it comes to an end. It turns out that the two statements are no longer in conflict. Out there, says they're no longer in conflict. Beautiful. You're right. We all know the truth. You should Torah Shema is a lecture of death. You should have been born. But right now you're here. Learn Torah. Don't stop learning. It's true that if one studies with an agenda, it's better to have been created, not have been created, and they are instigating lecture of death. Nevertheless, Rabbi Yehuda still advises that it's the right thing to study Torah. Don't stop studying Torah. Let that not stop you from studying Torah. The agenda, since, you know why? Not because you are such a great learner. It's because you're learning Torah, and Torah is going to change you. That's the power of Torah. Oh, wow. Moshe agrees. We have accomplished.
Kabbalah,
Kabbalah is receiving.
receiving. That is the translation.
Correct.
Not the-
The Kabbalistic sages in text 15:8 looked out to that, but continue. The Kabbalistic sages likewise say that all the Torah study and mitzvahs that a person does while still wicked, besides them temporarily strengthening the forces of evil, nevertheless eventually be removed from there and return to holiness when he repents. And therefore, keep on learning, because learning Torah is going to bring you to Teshuvah, and it's going to ultimately elevate everything that you learned. Thus, one should never abstain from the Torah, studying Torah. It can be the biggest Rasha. Learn with him Torah.
Wow.
Learn Torah. Don't stop learning. Don't say that learning Torah is a hypocrite. You learn Torah.
For a waste of time.
You'll be a hypocrite. You learn Torah. That's what Rabbi Yehuda says. That's what Rav says. Learn Torah Shalei Lishma. Because in the Lei Lishma is the Lishma. Mitaych, the Lei Lishma, in the ulterior motives, is the real stuff. You're learning Torah. Is the real stuff. You have the real stuff in the learning of Torah Shalei Lishma. You have the Torah. That's what's important. You have the Torah. Now we come back to the original story. That's what Moshe Rabbeinu told that's what Moshe Rabbeinu told the angels. He told the angels, we're Rishayim, right? We have the capability of murder, we have the capability of rape, and we have the capability, and some of us are doing all of this and all the above.
A lot of bad stuff.
We have all the bad stuff. We have the Torah. That's why we need the Torah.
We have to pretend.
That's how we need the Torah. That's why we need the Torah. Stuff is not as a deterrent. That's the reason why we need it. Right? So in text number 16, the Rebbe, this is the Rebbe. Even the loftiest of godly revelations are restricted by the definition of light and revelation. We learned this in Tanya over and over again. All the upper worlds, Atzilus, Bri, Yitzira, we're learning that, right? They're all about revelation. As such, the existence of evil, which is the antithesis to light, can oppose them. So there you can have the struggle. We have the opposite of light. So that's why, my friends, in those worlds, there cannot be any darkness. Because if there's darkness, it will be tzoros. Challenge light. Meaning, listen, this is a very deep concept, but if you read it, you have to read this thing. It's very deep. Listen to this. How the Rebbe looks at this. It's so beautiful. What?
You sound like Shlomo Prabhupada. Very deep.
Very deep. Now, this is very deep, but so pure. I'm serious, so pure. When you stand this paragraphs, so pure. So it looks at the Rebbe, it says, in the upper world, which is all about light, cannot have any darkness, because darkness would be a challenge to light. As a result, it's not within the capacities of these levels of God and manifestation to transform evil into good. No darkness. If there's light, there can be darkness. And darkness is a challenge to light. And therefore, there cannot be darkness in all the spiritual worlds.
So if the darkness is down here, we're only capable of turning it to light. We're the ones
We're the ones that are going to turn it to light.
the darkness is
The darkness is only down here.
we have to do.
But the question is, how do we turn something into light? That's the Torah. The Torah is God, and there's no challenge to God. There's no challenge to God. There's challenge to light, but there's no challenge to God. And therefore, the more Torah you learn, there's no challenge to God. And that's why God can transform darkness into light. Torah, which is God, can transform darkness into light. That's what Moshe Rabbeinu said to them. Moshe Rabbeinu said to them, darkness in heaven. You have no darkness in it. Why? Because you're only light. If darkness in heaven, you would be lost. We need the Torah, which is God, to transform darkness. That's the beauty. Let's just read this. Let's finish reading this. As a result, it's not within the capacity of this level of godly manifestation to transform evil into good. It is a manifestation. A force of holiness can only fight negativity until it destroys it completely. And this light cannot destroy it. Only God's essence, the ultimate of simplicity, beyond any definition, and unrelated to all opposition, has the capacity to alter and transform evil into good. And that's the power of Torah. The Eibush, the Torah, is the wisdom which is God, has the power to transform evil. That's why he said to them, you don't have any jealousy. You have no murder. You have no, because you don't even know what that is. Handle that concept. Why don't you have murder? Why don't you? Because you cannot handle it. Because you're all about light. And with this, darkness can challenge light. Darkness can challenge light. As it's in this world, darkness challenges light. You don't have the capacity. We, as humans, have the Torah, which gives us the power to transform darkness into light. Because we have the Eibishter that's above light. That's the essence. That's God. Nothing can oppose God. Did you get that, Levi? Did you get that? You had a problem. I want you to get it. I want you to get it.
Karen will explain, but I think it's just simple.
Let's look at the next paragraph. Maybe it'll become better. The essence of Torah, which is one with the essence of God, is expressed specifically in the fact that it serves as an antidote to the evil inclination. That's why he says to them, you don't have a Yetzer Hara. You have a Yetzer Hara. What's the antidote to the Yetzer Hara? Is the Torah. How is the antidote to the Yetzer Hara the Torah? Because the Torah is God. The Torah is God. And the only antidote to darkness is God. This is because the ability to counter evil inclination and transform into something good flows exclusively from God's essence. And he said, you have God's light. We have God's essence. And that's how we transform evil into bad, into good. You don't know what evil is. No capacity of evil. And thank God. Because you wouldn't be able to transform evil into good. Know what evil is. And that's why we need the Torah to transform evil into good.
Yeah, but I have a question. I don't know.
Let's end off. Maybe I'll answer your question.
Okay.
We'll end over the last paragraph, text number 18. Rebbe explains this deeper. The power of God's essence, which is vested in the Torah, is manifest and actualized when a soul serves God with the limitations and boundaries of this world. The soul descends into a world full of negativity and evil. Entities that are literally against God. That's this world.
That's true.
But what?
And in this low world, it fights with the evil inclination, breaks through and uncovers everything concealed and hidden and transforms darkness into light. Subjugation and transformation of negativity and evil entails that our little entities that are literally against God precisely encapsulates the idea of the total innovation, because it's a process of reverting the egotistic entity into utter nothingness. Total innovation is sourced in the essence of God. He has the capacity and the ability to create something out of utter nothingness, and he has bestowed upon us the power of reverting existing entity back to nothingness. That is done through us learning Torah. Through us learning Torah. Forget about what reason it's for. We live in an evil world. So we're affected by the world, the evil world. We learn Torah Shalei Lishma. We learn Torah for ulterior motives. Learning Torah. And by learning Torah, we're taking God with us. We are, in essence, incorporating it within our life, the Eibishter himself. And the Eibishter has the power to transform evil. The Eibishter, God, has the power of the transformation of evil into light. That's what Moshe Rabbeinu said to God and to the Malachim. You don't have evil. You don't have the capacity to murder. You don't have the capability of robbing. You have no capability of having affairs. You have no Yetzer Hara. Forget it. You don't have an evil inclination. You don't have a challenge of evil. You don't have that challenge. You need the Torah. You don't need the essence of God. You need to have revelation. You have. You're living in the world of Bria. You're living in the world of spirituality. You're living in the world of Yetzirah. You have all this wonderful revelation. Your journey of your revelation of godliness. We have a transformation. We were given the job of dealing with an evil inclination. We were given the job of dealing with the world. We need the Torah. We need the Torah. We need the essence of God to transform the world. And the Malachim agreed. Angels agreed. And the Abish self-understood agreed. Said before, mentioned before, or maybe I didn't mention this. Anoichi. The Gemara asks, you'll be in Sholem on Sunday. You're going to hear the Ten Commandments. In the Ten Commandments, it starts, Anoichi. Anoichi Hashem Alikecha. I am God, your God. We all know that in Hebrew, it's Ani. Why does the Pasuk use the word Anoichi? It's an Egyptian word. It's not a Hebrew word. The Hebrew word is Ani. And then one of the answers the Gemara says, Anoichi stands for Ana, I, Nafshi, my essence, Ksavis, I have written, Yehavis, I have given to you. Giving of the Torah is, I've given you my essence, which no spiritual upper world has that Anoichi. No godly world, whatever world you're going to go to, in Kabbalah, the world of Atzilus, Gan Eden, even after 120 years you're going to be in Gan Eden, you are not going to receive the Anoichi. You will not receive the Ana, Nafshi, Ksavis, Yavis. You're not going to see the essence of God in the way God has written it in the Torah that you have, God gives to each and every one of us. This coming Sunday actually gives to each and every one of us every single day. But in this coming Sunday, we have Hayamim El and the Skarim and Nasim. These days are again happen. Kabbalah Satira, the giving of the Torah. The Eibishter says, I've given you my essence. I've given you me. And why would I given you me? I've given you me. So you should transform the world. You should receive the Torah. Transform the world. Because only the Anoichi, only the Torah, only the I, only my essence can transform the world. And that's why I gave the Torah, that you should transform the world. So therefore, even in all your meshagasin, in all your craziness, in all your evil that you have, in all your terror motives, in all your negativity, continue to receive the Torah. Continue to learn the Torah. Continue to receive this Torah, because by receiving the Torah, you receive me. And ultimately, you're going to transform the world. So that's a beautiful sikha of the Rebbe. I hope that we all realize that, as the Rebbe would always say, you should receive the Torah, Kabbalah Satera. The Rebbe's blessing was, you should receive the Torah b'simcha, with great joy, or b'pnimius, and in an inner way. You should receive the Torah. You eat cheesecake. As I said, the Gemara says that when it comes to Shavuos, everybody agrees. The Gemara says, Hakel Maidim. All the sages agree. And when it comes to Shavuos, Be'ina Lachem, you need to have a good meal. Be'ina Lachem. All agree that when it comes to Shavuos, you need to have what's good for you. It should be a good meal. You should eat cheesecake and you should eat Forsake and you should have a good meal. Why? Because that's what the Torah was given for. That's what the Torah was given for. The Torah was given to you. The most spiritual concepts, God himself was all given to you. Not to you the way you're going to be in Gan Eden after 120 years. Not to you that you were in where you hope you're going to be. Oh, I hope one day I will be a tzaddik.
Or where you came from.
No, right now the Eibishter says, I want to be with you. right now. You know, even if you're Russia, I want to still be with you. You know, Torah motives. I want to be my Torah. Still wants to be with you. And my Torah, why? Because I know, I have no doubt that through my Torah, through accepting and receiving the Torah and learning the Torah, you are going to become a different person. There's no doubt, God says, in my mind, because the power of Torah is going to change you. So therefore, doesn't make a difference, whatever, never stop learning Torah. Continue to learn Torah as much as possible. And that's the whole holiday of Shavuos. The concept of Torah, we should never, ever stop learning Torah. Never in our lives should we stop. God bless you all. Shkach to the Rebbe. It's a beautiful, if you understand what the Rebbe wants to bring out over here, it's truly a beautiful concept. It should transform your whole holiday of Shavuos. You should have a different holiday. You should be dancing the whole Shavuos for the unbelievable gift that the Eibishter gave each and every one of us every single day. Power of Torah. Have a wonderful and beautiful day. Have a wonderful, beautiful Yontiv, everybody. Kabbalah Satera, b'simcha, with great joy, with pnimius in the inner way. And we should all have a wonderful Shabbos and a wonderful Yontiv.